What's up, guys? It's Colin, and today we're going to be talking all about reptile vitamins and calcium, and can you overdo it? Quick disclaimer before we begin today's video. I just want to say in no way are we attempting to give any sort of veterinary or medical advice. Today's video is about just general husbandry information and kind of about prevention. If you do have any questions about your reptile specific nutritional needs, I definitely recommend you contact your local qualified exotic reptile veterinarian. So when we talk about nutrition in reptiles, there's really two main categories of product that fall in. And the first category would be calciums, and the second category would be what we would call multivitamins or things like that. So in general, you're going to find several different types of calcium on the market. The type that we tend to carry is we carry the Zoomed calcium. So this is a calcium carbonate product. There's many different types of calcium on the market, but this product has I believe it's a 2-to-1 calcium to phosphorus ratio. It's very important to have that balanced in reptiles, as excessive amounts of phosphorus can be a problem. You'll see there's a with D3 and a without D3. And the with and without D3 is going to be dependent on the species of reptile you're keeping. For example, certain types of animals that are nocturnal or they have different nutritional needs will require calcium without D3. For example, certain types of chameleons can be certain types of chameleons have sensitivity to high levels of D3, or the other thing would be animals that are kept outdoors. We usually recommend calcium without D3, and the reason for that is if they're exposed to enough natural sunlight. Generally, with most diurnal or daytime awake reptiles, they're able to basically generate enough cholesterol in their skin from sunlight or UV exposure, and therefore they can create their own D3. And then the D3 is the vitamin that helps the reptiles be able to synthesize and digest calcium in the diet. So that's basically how D3 works. So there's two types. The type that you're going to use is going to be appropriate for whatever animal you're keeping. If you're unsure, just do a little bit of research or ask someone that's kept the species before or qualified. As far as general recommendations on calcium, we usually recommend dusting with calcium on any sort of insects they're eating. We usually recommend that about 3 times a week, and that's a good regimen. Some people also like to rotate through the different calciums, so you'll also see people that'll do without D3 and then do a with D3 every third feeding. That works really well too. You'll just be able to have to judge that on your own depending on the species you're keeping. One thing of note is it is possible to have excessive amounts of vitamin D3 or a vitamin D3 toxicity. But in my professional experience, again, I'm not a veterinarian, but it's more common to see metabolic bone disease than it is to see an excessive amount of D3. We usually recommend feeding with D3 for diurnal species like bearded dragons and stuff because, of course, us being humans and imperfect in nature, you're going to forget that feeding, you're going to forget that dusting unless you keep on a really rigid schedule. So in general, and especially if you have UVB lighting that's not the best and things like that, it can be beneficial to have a little extra D3 in the diet so they can digest that calcium. Modern reptile lighting has gotten a lot better, but in general, we still recommend using calcium with D3 about 3 times a week. In general, as far as overdosing on calcium, and again, I'm not an exotic veterinarian, but I would say the main issue people run into as far as like overdosing calcium would be if the animal's already in a predisposed condition where things are just not right in the diet. And the second issue would be there are liquid calcium products in the water that you can put in the water bowl. It's like a calcium gluconate, I believe, but these can be really overdone really easily. So I would definitely recommend, unless it's recommended by your veterinarian for a medical reason, stay away from the liquid calciums that you add to the water bowl. It's a really good way to have high toxicity in the body, especially when it comes to calcium and vitamin D3. One more thing I will say about calcium in general is, with most of your animals, what we call hypercalcemia, or it's like an excessive level of calcium in the body, is pretty rare, but it is still possible. So I definitely recommend whatever product you're using, just follow the manufacturer's instructions and you should be good to go. If you have any questions or you're having any issues, I would definitely recommend contacting your local exotic vet. So the next category of products on the market would be what I would call hybrid products. So these are like a calcium with a multivitamin mixed into one. What you have here is Repashy's Calcium Plus. So this is going to have a calcium in it. It's also going to include trace minerals like a multivitamin and different carotenoids and things like that. It also has a small amount of amino acids and things like that. With this product, the trace elements are pretty dilute, so it's pretty much safe to use every insect feeding. I like this one because it's easy to remember. Basically, you don't have to worry about doing a bunch of different powders and things like that. So for that reason, Calcium Plus can be really useful to newer keepers. It has I would say it has a very high safety profile as far as accidental use or accidental overages or anything like that. The next category of products I'd like to talk about is multivitamins. So there's two main types of multivitamin on the market. So the first product we have is the Reptile. So this product is made by Zoomed. So this is a multivitamin. One thing to note about this product is, so basically in the reptile diet world, there's two types of products. So there's products that contain beta carotene, which is kind of a little bit of a precursor to vitamin A. So beta carotene is basically only found in plant matter. So animals like herbivorous lizards, they take beta carotene that's consumed in their plant matter diet. The body then converts that to what's called retinol, which is like a preformed vitamin A. So they convert the retinol in the body. One of the differences, retinol only comes naturally, like by consuming other animal proteins. So for example, in insectivorous or carnivorous animals, they get their retinol from the animal matter that they're consuming. So one thing to note is if you have an animal that's like basically an herbivore or things like that, you're definitely going to want to stick more to a beta carotene supplement like the Reptile rather than a retinol based supplement like Reptile. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Basically, with retinol, it's stored in the liver and it cannot be excreted out of the body. With the beta carotene supplement, the animal can consume as much as it wants, and then any excess beta carotene, what's not converted into retinol, is excreted in the urine or the urates. So beta carotene has a little bit higher safety profile, I would say, in general. And to be fair, there is some debate in the community as far as the efficacy of beta carotene and can animals actually process and use it. That is a thing, but in general, most people tend to say that beta carotene is one of the safer ways to go. The only thing with retinol is vitamin A in general has probably been one of the most overused vitamins in reptiles for many years. Vitamin A, like insufficiency, is probably one of the top like diagnoses that reptiles get, especially when they have a lot of eye issues or things like that. So in general, with these multivitamin products, as far as feeding goes, Reptile, Zoomed recommends using once per week. Now they also make a without D3 version. We don't sell the without D3 version. This has vitamin D3 in it as well. According to Zoomed's feeding schedule, what they usually recommend is using a calcium without D3 product, like their standard calcium, no D3, 3 times a week, and then you use the Reptile once a week. The schedule that we usually prefer here at the Tye-Dyed Iguana is to use the calcium with D3 3 times a week, and then we'll do the Reptile, which is the beta carotene supplement, 1 time per week, and that's for bearded dragons. So different animals are going to have different care profiles. So just do your research on your individual species and go from there. But in general, if you were going with a retinol-based supplement, and you'll be able to see it on the analysis, you definitely want to be sparing on it. And when we're talking about vitamin A, it is possible to overdose, like I said, because it's not easily excreted out of the body. It's stored in the liver. So basically, if you have what we call hypervitaminosis A, basically the only treatment is basically supportive care, which means like fluids and monitoring and things like that. The body just has to excrete it on its own and get it out there and burn through it. So in general, we like to be a little light-handed on the retinol, and basically most of the time we prefer beta carotene. Now, as far as vitamin A goes, for our amphibian specialists, or if it's recommended to you by a qualified reptile veterinarian, we also do carry Repashy's Vitamin A Plus. So this is a concentrated vitamin A supplement. In general, this product, Repashy says they like to use it. It recommends it about twice a month. In my experience, if you're keeping dart frogs or mantellas or amphibians or things like that, I usually recommend maybe do it once a month, especially if you're feeding them a high insect diet already. And then generally for amphibians as well, I'm going to recommend using a calcium without D3 product as my staple calcium. And then on this guy, we use it about once a month. This is also used for treating medical issues like actual diagnosed vitamin A insufficiencies and or deficiencies and things like that. But in general, I like to caution people, unless your vet recommended it or you're keeping like dart frogs or mantellas, really watch it on the vitamin A. If you have any questions about your reptiles' dietary or supplement needs, you can always drop by the store, talk to an associate, or you can always contact your local exotic veterinarian. Have a great day.